Hello, hello, and welcome to USC Annenberg for USC Scoop. I'm Peter Gearson here with Scott Schrader, and we're breaking down post-practice Tuesday here, getting ready for Utah. Scott, a big matchup, the best team I think in the Pac-12, without a doubt. Utah coming to the Coliseum this Friday.
Yeah, it's gonna, USC had a tough time with BYU, and they dropped 8 and kind of successfully rushed at times. Just 4 guys. So this week they're playing a team that has an outstanding, one of the best defensive lines in the country, and their defensive backs for Utah are also extremely strong. So the USC offensive line is going to have their hands full. Keaton Slovis is going to have his hands full as well. But it's a Friday night game at the Coliseum, and Utah is generally a little bit different football team when they play on the road. So, I think USC, the home field advantage is going to play into USC's favor. So USC is going to have to go out and they're going to have to play a clean game. They're not going to be able to throw 3 interceptions. They're not going to be able to put the ball on the floor, with fumbles. The penalties each week so far, the 3 games, they've averaged 4 to 4.5. If that's what they do against Utah, they should be fine in that department. So right now it's just a matter of cleaning up the turnovers, executing the plays, and making the proper adjustments. I do believe that this week Keaton Slovis is going to have to run the ball. They don't have to design run plays for him, but he's going to have to run the ball. Last year when St. John Bosco played Mater Dei and Bosco kind of won easily, Bosco dropped 7-8. And Bryce Young he did not run the ball. He did not run the ball. And that ended up in a pretty, it was probably 20-point loss to St. John Bosco. So it was pretty decisive. So the second game, Bryce ran the ball, and I think this is a similar situation, but at the same time, Utah also plays a different style of defense. They're very aggressive. So, you probably know more about Utah than I do, but my assessment is that those are the key elements to a USC victory.
Yeah, all great points right there, and I like the point that you brought up, though. USC's a different team on the road. They've actually never won at the Coliseum. This is a different team than we've seen in the past, but I think USC is a much different team at home, too, compared on the road. That BYU game looks nothing like the week before, of course, against Stanford, who maybe Stanford's not a typical Stanford team this year, having a little down year, but Utah pretty much swept BYU aside in week 1, and USC obviously had a little tougher time.
The difference was a pick 6 by BYU. There were a couple of turnovers that led to the victory. So I think the game was actually a lot closer with BYU and Utah than people think.
Yeah, it definitely was. But Utah's defense, you pointed out, is very strong. Their defensive front is going to be a challenge. They're going to pose a big problem for that USC offensive line, who's already missing guys like Andrew Voorhees. And then the defensive backs, I think, are some of the best in the pack. You've got guys like Jalen Johnson, who one scout said was the best corner in the conference and will easily be an NFL draft pick. And you've got guys like Justin Blackman, who's just a beast in the defensive backfield as well for them. So they're a team that likes to force pressure. They play aggressively. They like to blitz. They like to go after the receivers and be aggressive with them. And then the offense, which isn't really talked about, Tyler Huntley, now in his 3rd year, and he's having a fantastic year. If you look up his stats, he hasn't attempted more than 19 passes per game, but he's completing 78% of them, which is actually just a percent ahead of Slovis, who going into last week, people were talking about his completion percentage. So I think Tyler Huntley is actually the epitome of efficiency. He's yet to be sacked this year.
You're dealing with another quarterback that is extremely mobile and can run. So
exactly.
USC is going to have their hands full with that again this week. But they also have Christian Rector back this week.
Huge.
And
That's
Greg
massive.
Johnson was back at practice today too, and I think those are 2 big additions.
Rector was asked. He did have ice on his foot at the end of the practice, but he was asked, "Is your ankle close to 100%?" He said more or less. So I think he'll be a go this weekend. And they sorely missed him last week. The way I saw it on the film, BYU was able to kind of double Drake Jackson, really put a lot of focus on him, and without the other guy on the other side, Christian Rector, who were 2 game wreckers really. I think the USC defense wasn't allowed to put as much pressure on the BYU quarterback. And there's also Zach Moss you got to deal with, as well as Huntley, and he's one of the best running backs in the conference.
He is.
He's averaging 6.5 yards per carry. So that's another guy you have to look out for.
Yeah.
And this USC defense is going to have their hands full.
With the receivers, too, of Utah, Chris Steele was talking about how the receivers that Utah has are all really fast. So,
Definitely.
yes, there's going to be challenges all over the football field for the entire football game. So, yeah, we've said this in a podcast. This Friday is when we're going to learn what kind of football team USC is.
Yep.
Not the way they played against Fresno and BYU and Stanford. This is the week we're going to learn, is USC as good as we thought they were going to be after fall camp.
And we'll learn more about Keaton Slovis because we just have 2 full games now of him on tape. Fabulous performance against Stanford. And what I thought was still a great, solid start by Slovis against BYU, but 3 key mistakes, 3 freshman mistakes you could call them, and those interceptions, forcing the ball in tight windows with a ton of coverage draped all over the receivers. And he wants those throws back. Graham Harrell talked about it yesterday, saying that just a couple of mistakes that ended up costing the game. 1 or 2 throws can really shift the pendulum one way or another. So we'll see if he comes back. Check out the roundtable question as well on uscscoop.com. Give us your predictions for this game. We can all have a discussion about it. And then the other question is, how many carries should Marquis Stepp get? Because he had a very nice showing last week at BYU. Just a couple carries for him, but averaged over 7 yards per carry. He's got 12 carries and 85 yards on the season. So should USC give him 10 carries a game, 8 carries a game? We'll see, because Stephen Carr didn't exactly get in his open space and go to work like we've seen him do in prior games. Last week, BYU did a good job of bottling him up.
Yep. So, another point, too, and that we spent a lot of time around these football players. We spent a lot of time around them, obviously, last year, and we have again this year. And, I don't know whether USC is going to win this football game on Friday. I believe they will. But this is a different USC football team this year than last year. These guys, they were extremely disappointed the way they lost. They didn't feel like they played well. They feel like they're a better football team than BYU. Better football teams lose football games. But you can just tell that they have rallied since 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and they are ready to take on Utah on Friday. So I expect USC to go out and play really, really well Friday night.
Yeah, short week, big game of the Coliseum, 6 p.m. kickoff, and it's really, I think, going to be the tiebreaker in the Pac-12 South Division, so it's a must-win for both teams. 3-0 Utah, who's really just breezed past their opponents, versus the 2-1 Trojans. So check out USC Scoop for more. For Pete Gearson and Scott Schrader, we'll say fight on.